"Stop that forbidden thing," the nun cried. But the mountain man didn't, and the town went mad. The town of Greywood was small and quiet, tucked away in the shadow of towering mountains. Its streets were narrow and lined with wooden houses that had been there for generations. The people of Greywood lived simple lives, mostly farming, raising animals, and tending to their small shops. Everyone knew each other, and nothing unusual ever happened. It was the kind of town where doors were left unlocked and neighbors waved as they passed by. Life was calm, almost too calm, until the day the mountain man arrived. No one knew where he came from. He appeared one morning climbing down the rocky slopes that bordered the town. His clothes were worn and patched, and his boots were caked with mud. His hair was long, tangled, and wild, falling over his face in uneven strands. His beard was thick and unkempt, and his eyes seemed to carry stories no one could understand. When he stepped onto the main street, the townspeople stopped what they were doing. Children playing with wooden toys froze in place, and merchants paused mid-sale. The stranger's presence was like a sudden gust of wind in a quiet room, unexpected and a little unsettling. The mountain man did not speak to anyone at first. He simply walked through the town, looking at the buildings and the people as if he were seeing them for the first time. He seemed fascinated by the wooden church at the center of town, its steeple reaching toward the sky. It had been there for over 100 years, and everyone in Greywood respected it deeply. Inside, the pews were polished, and the air smelled faintly of incense. The stained glass windows painted colorful patterns on the stone floor when the sun shone through them. Sister Agnes, the elderly nun who had cared for the church for decades, noticed the stranger immediately. She had seen many people come and go, travelers who stopped for a night or two, but there was something different about this man. His eyes were sharp and full of curiosity, and his movements were deliberate, almost as if he were examining every detail with great care. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Sister Agnes was a woman of deep faith, and she believed strongly in the rules of the church. She also believed in signs, and this man felt like one she could not ignore. That evening, the mountain man made his way to the outskirts of town, where old ruins stood. These ruins were remnants of buildings long forgotten, covered in moss and vines. They were places the townspeople avoided, believing they were sacred and dangerous. Children were warned not to go near them, and adults seldom ventured there. But the mountain man moved through the ruins with ease, as if he belonged there. He examined broken walls, picked up stones, and even brushed aside debris. It was clear he was searching for something, but no one could tell what. Rumors about him began to spread quickly. Some townspeople claimed he was a wanderer seeking shelter, while others whispered darker theories. Perhaps he was a thief, some said, or a spy from a distant city. Others thought he might be a man who had lived alone in the mountains for years and had lost touch with society. The truth was, no one really knew, and the mystery only made people more anxious. Sister Agnes decided she could not simply watch from the shadows. She had spent her life guiding the people of Greywood, protecting them from harm, and keeping the church safe. If this stranger was dangerous, she needed to act. Early one morning, she approached him as he examined a crumbling wall near the ruins. Her hands were folded in front of her, and her voice was calm but firm. "Sir," she said, "this place is not meant for wandering. These ruins are old and sacred."
"You should leave."
The mountain man turned his head slowly and looked at her. There was a calmness in his gaze, and yet an intensity that made her heart race. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he studied her for a long moment, as if weighing his response carefully. Then he finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "I mean no harm," he said. "I am only curious. There are stories in these stones, stories that no one remembers."
"I wish to understand them."
Sister Agnes frowned. She had heard similar words before from travelers and adventurers, but something about this man was different. His curiosity was not idle. It was deep, almost consuming. "Curiosity is not always safe," she said gently. "Some things are meant to stay hidden. The town has rules, and these ruins are one of them." The mountain man nodded, but there was no fear in his eyes. "I understand your concern," he said, "but knowledge is not always dangerous. Sometimes it is those who fear it who bring harm." Sister Agnes felt a pang of unease. His words were strange, almost challenging, yet there was no disrespect. He spoke like someone who had seen much and understood much, someone who did not belong to the ordinary rules of the town. She wondered what secrets he had uncovered in the mountains, what life he had lived alone among the trees and rocks. Over the next few days, the mountain man continued to explore. He visited the market, where he examined tools and supplies with careful attention. He wandered near the river, observing the way the water flowed over stones, and he spent hours in the forest, disappearing into the trees. The townspeople watched him from a distance, whispering to each other. Some were afraid, some were curious, and some were fascinated. The children, who were naturally brave and inquisitive, tried to follow him, but he moved too quickly for them to keep up. Sister Agnes kept a close eye on him, feeling both a sense of duty and a strange fascination. She began to wonder whether this man was meant to test the town in some way. His presence had already stirred fear, curiosity, and excitement. The calm life of Greywood was changing, and she did not know whether it was for better or worse. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting long shadows over the town, the mountain man climbed to the top of a small hill overlooking Greywood. From there, he could see every roof, every street, and the church that had been the heart of the town for generations. He stood silently, watching, and it seemed to Sister Agnes that he was not just observing the town but the people themselves, their fears, their routines, and their quiet lives. She approached him once more, her voice soft but insistent. "You do not belong here," she said. "The town will not understand you. They fear what they do not know." "Ah." He turned to her and gave a small, almost sad smile. "Perhaps," he said, "but fear is not always a reason to stop seeking the truth." Sister Agnes felt a chill. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. She realized that the mountain man was not just a stranger. He was a force that would change the town, whether they were ready or not. And in that moment, she understood that Greywood's peaceful days might be numbered. That night, the town slept uneasily. Windows were shut tight, doors were locked, and parents whispered warnings to their children. The mountain man remained outside, under the stars, his eyes reflecting the moonlight as he watched the town below. He seemed a part of the mountains, a part of the wild, yet he had stepped into human life, into a world bound by rules and fear. And in the quiet of her room, Sister Agnes prayed. She prayed for guidance, for protection of her town, and for the stranger who had come into their lives. She did not yet know whether he was a blessing or a danger, but she felt, deep in her heart, that the arrival of the mountain man would mark the beginning of a story the people of Greywood would never forget. The morning after the mountain man's silent vigil, the town of Greywood awoke with a mixture of unease and curiosity. People whispered to each other as they went about their routines, glancing toward the hills and forests where the stranger had come from. Even the usual sounds of birds and flowing water seemed quieter, as if the town itself was holding its breath. Everyone knew that the mountain man was no ordinary traveler, but what he wanted and why he had come remained a mystery. The mountain man did not hide his interest in the town's oldest places. By mid-morning, he was seen near the church again, wandering slowly through the graveyard that stretched behind it. Moss-covered stones leaned at odd angles, their engravings worn by time. Some townspeople thought it strange and even disrespectful that he touched the stones lightly, tracing the faded letters with his fingers. Others were fascinated, thinking perhaps he was remembering or discovering something important. Sister Agnes, watching from the window of the church, felt a mix of fear and worry. She had always protected the church and its sacred spaces, and now someone she did not know was moving through them as if they belonged to him. Later that day, the mountain man made his way toward the old town hall. The building had been abandoned for years, its windows broken and doors rotting. The townspeople avoided it entirely, claiming it was haunted by the spirits of the past. Children dared each other to peek inside, but always ran away before entering. Yet the mountain man approached the building confidently. He examined the structure with care, noting the patterns of cracks in the walls and the way the sunlight filtered through the broken panes. It was clear he was searching for something hidden that no one else had noticed. The town began to divide in their opinions about him. Some believed he was a danger and needed to be stopped immediately. They whispered about calling the town council, insisting that outsiders like him could bring trouble or even curses. Others felt that he was harmless and perhaps even wise. After all, he moved with patience and thoughtfulness, never breaking anything or speaking harshly. His curiosity seemed genuine, almost childlike. Yet there was something about him that made adults uneasy. Sister Agnes could not ignore what she felt was a warning. She knew that the town's history was full of secrets, stories that the older generations had kept from the young, sacred objects hidden away, and rituals performed long ago that were meant to protect Greywood. She worried that the mountain man's curiosity could awaken something that was better left alone. That afternoon she approached him near the town hall, her hands folded tightly in front of her. "Please," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I understand you wish to learn, but some things in this town are not meant for strangers. You must leave these places alone." The mountain man looked at her, his eyes calm and unwavering. "Bah! I respect your concern," he said. "I do not mean to cause harm. I am only seeking to understand the past, to uncover what time has hidden."
Sister Agnes hesitated. She had spent her entire life following the rules of the church, protecting sacred objects, and teaching the townspeople to respect the old ways.
Yet, in the mountain man's words, she sensed a kind of honesty that made her pause. Still, she could not ignore the unease she felt. "Knowledge can be dangerous," she said quietly, "and curiosity can lead people to places they are not ready to see." Sometimes the truth is not for everyone. The mountain man nodded, but there was no fear or defiance in his expression. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "but sometimes the truth must be faced, even if it is frightening." That evening, the mountain man returned to the ruins outside the town. He moved with the confidence of someone who had spent years in the wilderness, climbing over rocks, brushing aside branches, and examining every stone and corner. The ruins were quiet, abandoned for generations. Yet there was an energy about the place. It was as if the walls themselves were waiting to share their stories with someone who could understand them. The mountain man listened carefully, not just with his ears, but with a kind of attention that seemed to sense history itself. The townspeople began to follow at a safe distance, curious but afraid. Mothers held their children close, whispering warnings. Shopkeepers paused in their work to watch from behind windows. Even the mayor, who prided himself on being practical, found himself standing near the edge of the forest, wondering what the mountain man might find. Everyone felt the tension in the air, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and anticipation. One day, the mountain man discovered an old, locked chest hidden beneath a pile of stones in the ruins. Its wood was cracked and faded, and the iron latch was rusted, but it had clearly been protected and hidden for a reason. He lifted it carefully, examining the carvings on the surface. There were symbols, patterns, and letters that no one in Greywood could read anymore. Sister Agnes arrived shortly after, rushing to him. "Stop!" she cried, her voice filled with urgency. "That chest is sacred. It has been kept hidden for generations. You cannot open it." The mountain man looked at her and then back at the chest. "I understand your warning," he said softly, "but it has been hidden too long. Secrets cannot remain in the dark forever." They belong to those who seek to understand them. Sister Agnes felt her heart pound. She knew that he was brave, but she feared the consequences. The townspeople began to gather nearby, whispering anxiously and pointing at the stranger. Some of them shouted, calling him a troublemaker or worse. The tension in the town grew thick, like fog over the mountains. It was clear that the mountain man's actions were not going unnoticed, and the town's fear was slowly turning into panic. Over the next few days, the mountain man continued to explore the ruins, carefully examining artifacts and carvings. He did not steal or destroy anything, but his presence disturbed the peace of Greywood. The townspeople became increasingly anxious. Arguments broke out in the streets about whether he should be allowed to stay. Some wanted to confront him directly, while others urged patience, hoping he would leave on his own. Children were warned not to play near the ruins, and families began locking their doors at night. Sister Agnes spent long hours praying in the church. She prayed for guidance, for the safety of her town, and for the mountain man. She wondered if he was a messenger of change, someone sent to teach the townspeople lessons about curiosity, fear, or courage. Or perhaps he was a danger they had yet to understand. She could not be sure, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on her heart. One morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, the mountain man climbed to a small cliff overlooking Greywood. From there, he could see the entire town spread out below him, the roofs, the streets, the people moving about their day. It all seemed so small from his perspective. He took a deep breath, feeling the wind on his face, and for a moment, the forest and the town seemed connected. He had come to Greywood not to conquer, but to discover. And yet, he knew that discovery often brought change, and change could be frightening. That night, the town was restless. Windows rattled in the wind, and the streets were unusually quiet. Some people claimed they had heard strange sounds coming from the ruins. Others said they saw lights flickering where no fire should be. Parents held their children close, and neighbors whispered hurried prayers. The mountain man slept under the stars, far from the town, but his presence had already begun to leave a mark. Greywood was no longer the quiet, peaceful town it had always been. Sister Agnes, lying awake in her small room in the convent, thought about the mountain man and the chest he had found. She felt a mixture of fear and hope. Perhaps he was a force that would challenge their fears and awaken curiosity that had long been forgotten. Or perhaps his presence would bring trouble and confusion. She could not know for certain, but she understood one thing. The mountain man had arrived, and Greywood's life would never be the same. The days after the mountain man discovered the old chest brought attention to Greywood that no one had ever felt before. The town, usually calm and routine, seemed to vibrate with unease. People whispered in corners, their voices low and full of fear. Some said the stranger was dangerous, Others believed he was simply curious, but almost everyone agreed that something had changed. The air itself seemed heavier, as if the mountains around them were watching and waiting. The mountain man, unaware of the growing anxiety, continued his careful exploration. He moved through the ruins with patience, lifting stones, examining carvings, and noting details that others had overlooked for decades. To him, every crack, every faded letter, every weathered symbol told a story. He worked slowly, methodically, never hurried, and always with great respect. But the townspeople who watched him from afar did not see respect. They saw rebellion. Sister Agnes grew more anxious with each passing day. Had begun to notice that the mountain man's presence was changing not only the town, but also herself. She felt a mixture of fear, curiosity, and something she could not name, a strange fascination with him and the mysteries he was uncovering. Every time she saw him handling the chest or studying the ruins, she felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew she had to do something, but she was unsure what would work. One morning, the mountain man returned to the chest he had found hidden beneath the stones. He set it down carefully and ran his fingers over the carvings. He seemed to be speaking softly to himself, almost like he was trying to understand the words without needing anyone to translate them. Sister Agnes arrived just as he began to examine it. "Please," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "leave it alone. It is not meant for us, and it is not meant for strangers. The town has rules, and these rules exist to protect us." The mountain man looked up, his calm eyes meeting hers. "I respect your concern," he said gently, "but hiding the past does not erase it. The truth will find a way, whether we are ready or not." The words struck Sister Agnes like a bolt of lightning. She knew he was right, in a way, and yet the idea of exposing the town to secrets long buried filled her with dread. She could see the townspeople gathering in the distance, watching from the edges of the forest and the streets. Their whispers grew louder, and some began to shout, demanding that the stranger leave immediately. The mountain man did not flinch. He continued to examine the chest, his actions calm, deliberate, and precise. Over the next few days, the town became more divided. Some residents believed that the mountain man was a force of good, someone who could uncover forgotten knowledge and help the town understand its history. Others believed he was dangerous, a threat to their safety and their way of life. Arguments broke out in the streets, sometimes in whispers, sometimes louder, as neighbors debated whether to confront him or let him continue. Children, naturally curious, began to follow the mountain man at a safe distance, fascinated by his confidence and knowledge. He never chased them away, but instead allowed them to watch quietly. He seemed to understand that they were learning, observing, and thinking for themselves. Sister Agnes noticed this and felt a pang of both hope and worry. Perhaps he could teach them valuable lessons, but at what cost? One afternoon, a small group of townspeople decided to confront the mountain man directly. They approached him near the ruins, their voices a mixture of anger and fear. "You cannot stay here," one man shouted. "You do not belong in our town." The mountain man turned to face them, his calm expression unshaken. "I do not wish to harm anyone," he said softly. "I only seek to understand. Knowledge is not a threat unless it is misused." "But you are breaking the rules," another resident argued. "You are touching what should not be touched. You are disturbing the peace of Greywood." The mountain man looked around at the crowd, his eyes steady and patient. "Rules are important," he said, "but sometimes they protect fear more than truth. I mean no harm. I only wish to learn." The townspeople were not convinced. Fear had taken hold, and fear can be louder than reason. They muttered among themselves, their faces pale and their hands shaking. Some turned to leave, while others stayed, unsure whether to act or wait. Sister Agnes stepped forward, placing herself between the mountain man and the townspeople. "Please," she said, her voice firm, "let us not act in anger. He seeks knowledge, not destruction. Let us watch and learn before we decide what is right." The crowd hesitated. Her words had a calming effect, if only slightly. People looked at the mountain man, then back at Sister Agnes, unsure what to do next. The tension remained, thick and heavy, but for the moment, violence was avoided. That night, the mountain man set up a small camp near the ruins. He built a fire, not to burn anything but to keep warm, and sat quietly by its glow. The townspeople watched from a distance, some too afraid to sleep, others too curious to look away. The mountain man seemed unaware of the attention, lost in his own thoughts as he examined the carvings he had found that day. Sister Agnes returned to the church, her heart heavy. She knelt in prayer, asking for guidance. She did not know whether the mountain man would bring danger or wisdom, but she felt certain that his presence had already changed Greywood. The town would not return to the same peaceful routine it had known before. Something larger was at play, something that would test their courage, patience, and understanding. The next morning, the mountain man discovered more artifacts hidden in the ruins. Small statues, carved stones, and fragments of old texts lay scattered under the moss and dirt. Each piece seemed to tell a story of the people who had lived in Greywood long before the current town existed. He handled everything with care, speaking softly as if to honor the past. When the townspeople saw him again, fear mingled with fascination. Some were certain he was meddling with forces beyond their understanding, while others saw a man uncovering history that had been lost for generations. Sister Agnes watched from a distance, her heart torn. She wanted to protect her town, but she also wanted to understand the knowledge the mountain man was uncovering. Over time, the mountain man began to piece together parts of the town's forgotten history. He discovered records of old leaders, the original builders of the church, and even forgotten rituals meant to protect Greywood from danger. Each day brought a new revelation, and with each discovery, the town grew more restless. People did not know how to react to this uncovering of the past. Some tried to confront him again, demanding he leave. Others quietly watched, curious but afraid to speak. Arguments broke out in the town square, and the tension became impossible to ignore. The once quiet town of Greywood was alive with whispers, debates, and fear, all centered around the mountain man and his search for knowledge. Sister Agnes realized that the mountain man had become more than a stranger in their town. He had become a mirror, showing the people their own fears and doubts. He challenged them to think, to question, and to face what they had long ignored. And while fear made many resist, curiosity made others follow, eager to understand what had been hidden for so long. By the end of the week, it was clear that Greywood would never be the same. The mountain man had uncovered more than artifacts. He had awakened the town's curiosity and challenged their beliefs. And though Sister Agnes worried for the consequences, she could not deny the importance of what was happening. Something was coming, she sensed, something that would force the town to confront truths long buried, and it was up to them to choose how to respond. The days following the mountain man's discoveries brought tension to Greywood that was almost unbearable. The town that had always been calm and orderly now felt restless and uneasy. Windows were shuttered during the day, and doors were locked at night. The once cheerful chatter of the marketplace had been replaced by hushed whispers and anxious glances. The people of Greywood could not understand the mountain man, yet his actions disturbed them deeply. Every step he took in the ruins, every object he uncovered made them feel that their quiet, safe world was slipping away. The mountain man, however, remained calm. He moved carefully through the ruins, examining each stone, each carving, and each artifact he uncovered. He treated everything with respect, speaking softly to himself as he pieced together the story of the town's past. To him, the ruins were not dangerous. They were a puzzle, a way to understand the people who had lived there long ago. But to the townspeople, every movement of the mountain man seemed threatening. Fear had begun to cloud their judgment, and whispers of danger spread faster than truth. Sister Agnes tried her best to keep the townspeople from panicking. She reminded them that the mountain man had not harmed anyone, and that knowledge itself was not evil. But fear is a powerful force, and it had already taken root in Greywood. Some people began locking their children indoors, worried that the mountain man's curiosity would bring misfortune. Others began avoiding the ruins entirely, afraid to be near the stranger. Even the town council, normally calm and practical, was divided. Some members wanted to confront the mountain man directly, while others advised caution, fearing that any action could make matters worse. One evening, the mountain man was working near the chest he had found hidden beneath the stones. He carefully cleaned it and examined the carvings, trying to understand the meaning of the symbols. Suddenly, a group of townspeople appeared at the edge of the ruins. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with fear, and they carried torches that flickered in the growing darkness. "You must leave at once," one of them shouted. "You are bringing danger to our town." "This is not your place." The mountain man looked at them calmly. "I mean no harm," he said quietly. "I am only seeking to understand the past. These objects belong to history, not to fear." The townspeople did not listen. Fear had already taken hold of their minds. Some shouted louder, demanding he leave, while others tried to surround him, their torches casting tall, wavering shadows across the ruins. The tension in the air grew thick, almost suffocating. Sister Agnes arrived just in time to stand between the mountain man and the crowd. "Please," she said, her voice firm but filled with concern, "do not act in anger. He has harmed no one. We cannot allow fear to decide our actions." Some of the townspeople hesitated, glancing at Sister Agnes as if seeking guidance. But fear is stubborn, even with her words. Many could not calm themselves. The crowd began to argue among themselves, voices raised, pointing fingers, blaming one another for not acting sooner. The mountain man remained still, his calm presence almost a challenge to the growing hysteria. As night fell, the storm began. Dark clouds rolled over the mountains, and winds swept through the streets of Greywood, shaking doors and rattling windows. Rain began to fall, first in soft drops, then in heavy sheets that made the roads muddy and slippery. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the ruins where the mountain man stood. The townspeople screamed, pointing at the sky and blaming the stranger for the sudden storm. The mountain man did not flee. He moved carefully through the ruins, sheltering the chest under a protective covering. His mind focused on the artifacts and symbols. He seemed unaffected by the storm, almost as if he had expected it. The townspeople, however, were frantic. They shouted and cried, calling the mountain man a bringer of misfortune and demanding that he be stopped. Fear had become chaos. Sister Agnes tried desperately to calm everyone.
"The storm is natural," she shouted.
"It is not his doing. Stand down and think clearly." Some listened, though fear still held them tightly. Others ignored her completely, too caught up in panic to hear reason. Children clung to their parents, shivering and crying, while families hid inside their homes. The mountain man worked quietly, his calmness a sharp contrast to the hysteria surrounding him. In the midst of the storm, a small fire started at the edge of the ruins. A falling branch from a lightning-struck tree had landed on dry grass, and flames began to spread. The townspeople panicked even more, some running to try to put it out, others retreating in fear. The mountain man, seeing the fire, acted immediately. He gathered stones and dirt, using his knowledge of the land to create a barrier and contain the flames. Sister Agnes helped, and together they managed to control the fire before it could reach the town. When the storm finally passed, the ruins were wet and smoky, the chest still intact, and the mountain man standing calmly amid the remnants of chaos. The townspeople were exhausted, wet, and frightened, but also relieved that the damage had been limited. They realized that the mountain man had not caused the storm, and in fact, his actions had prevented the fire from spreading further. Yet fear remained. The events of the night had shaken the town to its core, to its park. They began to whisper that the mountain man brought not only knowledge, but also danger, that his presence attracted forces beyond their understanding. Arguments erupted in the streets, and the town council convened to decide what to do next. Some wanted to force him to leave immediately, while others suggested that perhaps he could stay if they monitored him carefully. Sister Agnes, exhausted but determined, spoke to the council. "He has harmed no one. He has only sought knowledge and shown respect for our town and its history. Punishing him for curiosity would be a mistake. Fear has led us into chaos, but understanding can guide us back." Her words had some effect, though not everyone was convinced. The town remained tense, divided between fear and curiosity. Some people avoided the mountain man entirely, while others watched him closely, unsure what to expect next. Children, curious as ever, sneaked closer to observe his work, learning silently from his calm movements and careful attention. The mountain man continued his work the following days, quietly exploring the ruins and examining the chest. He discovered more carvings, hidden compartments, and fragments of old texts that told stories of Greywood's earliest days. Some of the townspeople began to see the value in his discoveries, realizing that history could teach them lessons about courage, wisdom, and resilience. Others remained fearful, unwilling to accept that curiosity could be a force for good. Sister Agnes, too, found herself changing. She still worried for the town, but she began to see that the mountain man's presence had a purpose. He had challenged their fears and brought attention to knowledge they had long ignored. She realized that sometimes fear must be faced, and curiosity, if guided with respect, could be a teacher. By the end of the week, the town had calmed slightly, though the tension lingered like a shadow over Greywood. The mountain man continued his careful work, uncovering history one piece at a time. The chest, now open, revealed symbols, artifacts, and fragments that told the story of the town's past, its founders, its traditions, and even warnings left long ago for those who would forget. The townspeople began to watch, learning slowly that the stranger's curiosity was not a threat, but a bridge to understanding. Yet, even as some accepted him, others remained fearful. They whispered that the mountain man was still a stranger, that danger could come at any moment, and that perhaps the chest contained more than anyone could safely handle. Greywood had been changed by his presence, and no one could deny that. The town would never return to the calm life it had once known. Sister Agnes knew that something more significant was coming. The mountain man had uncovered knowledge, yes, but he had also awakened the town's fears, their doubts, and their desire to understand what had been hidden. The events of the storm, the fire, and the divided town were only the beginning. She sensed that the final test of courage, faith, and wisdom was yet to come, and that the choices the town made next would decide whether Greywood would fall into chaos or rise to a deeper understanding of itself. The days after the storm left Greywood in a state of uneasy calm. Though the fire had been contained and the ruins remained largely intact, the town had been shaken to its core. People moved cautiously through the streets, whispering in hushed tones, unsure what to think or believe. The mountain man, however, continued his quiet work, exploring the ruins and uncovering pieces of Greywood's history. Each day brought new discoveries, carved stones, faded texts, and small relics that told the story of the town's earliest settlers. His work was meticulous and respectful, yet the tension in the town remained palpable. Sister Agnes spent her days guiding the townspeople through their fear. She reminded them that knowledge was not something to fear, and that curiosity, when handled with care, could teach them valuable lessons. We must see what has been hidden, she told them, not with fear, but with understanding. Only then can we truly protect our town. Her words comforted some, but others remained wary, convinced that the mountain man's presence still carried danger. One morning, the mountain man climbed the small hill overlooking the town. From there, he could see the roofs, the streets, and the people moving about below. He studied Greywood carefully, as if trying to understand the town itself, not just its history. Sister Agnes approached him, her steps quiet on the grass.
"You have done much to uncover what was hidden," she said, "but now the town needs guidance."
They do not yet know how to react to what you have found. The mountain man nodded slowly. I understand, he replied. History is not just about the past. It is about the present and about preparing for the future. The people must choose how to face what they have learned. Together they returned to the town, the mountain man carrying the chest carefully, its contents now fully revealed. The townspeople gathered in the square, some standing nervously, others curious to see what had been found. The air was thick with anticipation and fear. Some whispered warnings to their neighbors, while others watched silently, their eyes wide with curiosity. The mountain man placed the chest in the center of the square and opened it slowly. Inside were relics of the past, carved stones, fragments of old texts, and small symbols whose meanings had long been forgotten. He held each item gently, explaining to the townspeople what he had discovered. He spoke of the town's founders, the struggles they had faced, and the traditions they had built to protect Greywood. Slowly, the people began to understand that these artifacts were not dangerous. They were lessons, stories, and reminders of the town's resilience. Sister Agnes stepped forward, her voice calm and reassuring. These objects are part of our history, she said. They show us who we are, where we came from, and what we can achieve. There is nothing to fear here, only knowledge and understanding. Some townspeople still hesitated, their fear holding them back. But as the mountain man continued to speak, showing the care and respect with which he had treated every object, more and more people began to listen. Children peered at the artifacts with wide eyes, their curiosity sparking excitement rather than fear. Adults slowly realized that the stranger who had frightened them for so long was not an enemy, but a guide, someone who had shown them a path to understanding their own history. Over the next few days, the town began to change. People who had once avoided the ruins now ventured there, exploring carefully and learning about the past. Families gathered to hear the mountain man tell stories of the early settlers, and the chest became a symbol of the town's history, rather than a source of fear. Sister Agnes worked alongside him, teaching the townspeople how to respect the artifacts and understand their meaning. The mountain man never rushed, never demanded, and never acted as if he were above anyone else. His calm presence encouraged the town to reflect, to listen, and to learn. As Greywood adjusted to the mountain man's presence, tensions slowly eased. Fear that had once dominated the town was replaced by curiosity, respect, and even a sense of excitement. People began to see the value of knowledge, understanding that the past could guide them toward a better future. Arguments in the streets quieted, and families once again walked freely, their children playing safely near the ruins. Yet even as peace returned, the mountain man remained a mystery. No one knew where he had come from, nor did anyone know where he would go when his work in Greywood was done. He did not speak of his past, nor did he claim to belong to the town. He was a visitor, a teacher, and a guide, someone who had come from the mountains to show them the value of understanding, courage, and curiosity. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting a golden glow over the town, Sister Agnes approached the mountain man. "You have given us much," she said softly. "The town will remember this for generations. But what will you do now?" The mountain man looked at the ruins, then at the town below. "My work here is complete," he said. "The town now knows its past, and it is up to the people to decide how to use that knowledge. I will continue my journey, as I have always done, but I will carry Greywood in my thoughts." Sister Agnes nodded, understanding. Though she wished he could stay, she knew that some people were meant to pass through lives quietly, leaving lessons behind and moving on. She felt gratitude and respect for the mountain man, knowing that his visit had changed Greywood forever. The next morning, the mountain man left the town. He climbed the path toward the mountains, his figure gradually disappearing against the rocky slopes. The townspeople watched from their windows and doorways, waving silently, their hearts full of mixed emotions. Some felt sadness at his departure, others relief, but all felt a sense of gratitude for what he had brought to their lives. In the days that followed, Greywood slowly returned to its routines. Children played freely in the streets, families tended to their homes and gardens, and merchants reopened their shops with renewed energy. But the town was no longer exactly the same. People spoke more openly about their history, their traditions, and the lessons they had learned. The ruins became a place of study rather than fear, and the chest remained as a reminder of the mountain man's visit and the knowledge he had shared. Sister Agnes continued her work in the church, teaching the townspeople about respect, understanding, and curiosity. She told them stories of the mountain man and the discoveries he had made, emphasizing the importance of learning and reflection. The town listened, remembering the lessons of the storm, the fire, and the fear that had once gripped them. They had learned that knowledge could be both powerful and peaceful, depending on how it was approached. Years later, children who had seen the mountain man's careful work would tell the stories to their own children. The chest, its relics carefully preserved, became a symbol of Greywood's courage, wisdom, and curiosity. Sister Agnes, older now, would smile when she saw the town thriving, knowing that a stranger had come into their lives and taught them something that would last for generations. Though the mountain man was never seen again, his impact remained. Greywood had faced fear, chaos, and uncertainty, and had come out stronger and wiser. The town learned that curiosity could bring growth, that respect could overcome fear, and that even strangers could teach the most important lessons. And so the small mountain town, once quiet and hesitant, became a place where knowledge, understanding, and courage were cherished above all. In the end, Greywood understood what Sister Agnes had always known. Sometimes the forbidden or the unknown is not meant to harm, but to teach. The mountain man had come, challenged them, and left, and the town had survived, learned, and grown. The story of his visit became a legend, a reminder that courage and curiosity, guided by respect and care, could transform even the smallest and most frightened of towns.